the navigation. All right, so we look at the project right now. We don't want the user to hit the reload button and then suddenly it goes to the wrong path, or it doesn't go where it's supposed to go. So in this case, we can add something called a route guard to help us get to where it's supposed to go. As an example, for example, let's say if I want to click the Add to Cart button and then click the browser's reload button, the server will return the contents of the index.html file, and Angular will immediately go to the cart detail component, skipping over the part of the application that really allows the user to select books, right? Which is not what we want. So if that happens, if they go right to the cart detail and there's nothing in the cart, we don't want them to do that. We want them to go back to the books list. And what we can do is we can create something called a route guard in order for that to happen. All right, so this is going to be something we're going to put inside of the source app folder. That's guards. We can also make it inside of a guards folder, and that's perfectly fine as well if we want to keep all our guards inside of the app. I like organize myself so that it's inside of a guards folder, so I'll do that right now. So again, I'm going to make a new folder. I'm going to call it guards. And inside the guards, we're going to add in a new file. We're going to call this the store first guard.ts, just like it does in the PowerPoint. So store first guard.ts. Okay, so it's a guard. And we're going to do a couple things. Let's see if we can do this again automatically as opposed to the way we've been doing it so far. So I'm going to go down in here and say at injectable. And notice that when I do add injectable, it adds this. We need this to be with TS linting. It has to work properly. We're going to export a class called store first guard. Okay. And we're going to have a private first navigation. We're going to make that equal to true. We know that if it's equal to true, that this must be a Boolean through implicit typing. We're also going to make a constructor so that it takes a private router, which is of type router. And we want to make sure we handle that one properly. Okay. Let's put that on the same line just to be kind of the same as in the PowerPoint this time around. We're going to have a link or a method called can activate. And we're going to have a route. We're going to call it the activated route snapshot. Activated route snapshot. And notice it adds it up to the top there as part of the router, as well as the state, which is the router state snapshot. Okay, so we added that in there as well. Okay. And that is going to return a Boolean, right? So can it activate, yes or no? And what we're going to do here is we're going to say if this dot first navigation, if that's true, the first time that you're going there, then this dot first navigation is equal to false. So we're going to reverse it. It's not the first navigation anymore. It's the first time we're going there. And if root.component is not equal to our store component, book store component, if that's the truth, book store component, then what we want is that this.router.navigate by URL, we want to make them go back to the bookstore component. So /book list. Okay, that's kind of important. And we're going to return false. However, if it is true, so if this is, we pass through this and it is not the first navigation, then we're going to return true. So that's what the auth guard does. It basically checks to see if this is the first time we've gone to the bookstore component, and if it's true and we're trying to go into the shopping cart or something else, we're going to go right to the book list. as opposed to allow us to go to an empty shopping cart, which doesn't make any sense. All right, so that is that part. Now we got a bit of a linting issue. You can see the warnings come up yellow on here, and we can see what the warnings look like. So that's the first part of the auth guard. The next part is making sure that that store first guard is added in to the app module, right, for the routing part itself, right? So again, in the app module, we want to prevent the store, the cart, and the checkout from going into any other place other than where they have to go, okay? So again, in the app routing module, in here, what we want to do is we want to use the store first guard, and it's going to be a provider. So imports, exports, and we have a provider. We can do that first. We can do it in this kind of way of doing things. So provider is going to be an array of providers. This one is going to be the store first guard, which adds in a reference to the store first guard. I'm kind of liking this automatic kind of route pathing, which happens right here, and it's adding it automatically. This is pretty cool and easy to use. All right, so we have our book list, our cart, and our checkout. So if anytime it goes to one of these places and it hasn't been there before, we want to check it out. And what we can do is, doesn't matter where you put this, by the way, we can put it at the back end. We can say something like can activate. And if can activate this is true, we're going to use our store first guard, right, to check to see if it can activate or not. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing for the other routes. So we're going to say this one, I'm going to go there, and we're going to go to checkout. All right, so only if they've gone there before, if they haven't gone there before, they're going to go back. That's what this thing does. All right, it looks like we've compiled successfully. And now, well, let's try it again. So if I go back to our site, right, and if I refresh, we're good. But let's suppose I was going home, and then I wanted to go to the cart. So I went to cart, and press enter. It should take us to the book list now. It won't allow us to go there. If I go to checkout, now if we've never gone to the book list, so let's go to checkout, it's going to take us back to the book list. Unless we go here, then we're good, right? If we're going to go through our component, it'll take us to the cart. But if I was just going to go to the cart by itself, it's going to take us back to the book list, which is kind of a good way of doing things. All right, so that is what the store first guard does. All right, the next thing we want to do in this little video is complete the cart detail feature. In order for us to do that, we're going to go into the cart detail component.ts. So that will be under our bookstore, cart detail component.ts, this one. And you can see what we have is we're going to add a cart into our constructor. So in our constructor, we're going to say public cart, which is of type cart. And you can see automatically it's going to add a cart object, right? And a cart, remember, it's a model for the cart. And what we want to do is connect to our cart detail component.html, which right now is just a placeholder. This is a little long. And so I'm going to type it all out, but you can always copy paste it from our app. For now, I want to talk about it and what it does. So a div with a class of container fluid. Again, I'm going to talk through it so that you know what this does. So container fluid, again, takes us right to the edge of the page. Inside that, we want to have a div with a class of row. Inside that, we want to have a div with a class of column and then mt2, right? So margin top, right? And then we want to have inside of that, we want to have an h2 tag with a class of text center. And then the text that's inside the m2 tag is going to be your cart. Okay. Your cart. And then next to that, what we're going to have is a table with a class of table, table bordered, and then table dash striped. with a padding of 2. Inside that, we want to have a head. All right. So table head. Inside the table head, we're going to have, this is pretty long, huh? Inside that, we're going to have a table row. And inside that table row, we're going to have several table headings, all right, that we're going to put in. We're just going to do this, and then we're going to stop at this point, okay? So table row with table headings times 4. And then if I go there and press this, then we should get this structure, okay, which kind of sets us up for success. So let's go through it, make sure we have everything. So again, a div tag with a column -m2, it looks like it's good. Inside of a row, which is good. We have a your cart with a text center and a table border, table striped with a padding of 2. In the table head, we have a table row that is the first one, which is quantity. And then the second heading or second column is what this is the book. Okay, and followed by a table heading with a class of text right, and in that table heading class we're going to put in price, and just because we have this already laid out for us, we're just going to replace this one with subtotal. Okay, so price and subtotal. So that is our table heading. We're still in the table itself, and we're going to do some more scaffolding at this point. So for the table body, we are going to include a table row, right? And that table row is going to have inside of it a table column with a class of text center. And you can also put attributes like this with a call span that equals to 4. Okay, you can do that. And you can put in a description for the text, which is your cart is empty. All right, and if I click on this, just by clicking on it once, it'll produce that particular thing. So this is cool. One thing we have to add to the TR is an ngIf. So ngIf again is a conditional, and it basically says that, hey, if the cart dot lines, if the cart lines dot length, if that's equal to 0, that means there isn't any length to the cart. I mean, it means that there's no lines. The lines array is empty. We haven't added anything in there. We're just going to say that this conditional row is going to show up when that happens. All right, and then what we want is we're going to do a repeating section. So this is the repeating section. So this is where we're going to have an area here. So this is conditional. We'll put that in here too. So this is our conditional section. So this is only going to show up when that makes sense. Okay, so that's what the ngIf is for. It's really kind of useful. Very similar to what we would do with the express. We can say if, an if statement in express, we just use ngIf when we're using Angular. All right, and so what we want to say is that we want to have a table row, and inside the table row we're going to have a table column. Table column is going to, inside of that is going to have an input with a class of form-control -sm, small form control. We're also going to put in a couple of attributes. One of the attributes is going to be type, which is equal to number. I make single quotes. We've been using single quotes the whole time. Let's just keep using them. As well as the style, which is equal to width 5em. Okay, so that's going to be something that we're going to add in. We're going to do a little bit of inline styling here for this one. And that is really what we want to start off with. I'm just going to click this, so it's going to create the right structure for us. So table row, and then we're going to say ng4. So 4 equals to let line of cart dash dot lines. Right. So for every line in the cart lines for every one. We're going to make this column that we're going to do, right? That's what this row is. We're going to make a row. We're going to make several rows, and each of the rows is going to have a column that has this detail inside of it. So where we're going to say that, so to make sure that this is all good. So we have an input, and the input is going to kind of show us a couple of things, where the input itself is going to have a value, and the value is going to be equal to the line quantity, okay? And on change, remember this means on a change event, right? We want our cart update quantity to be triggered. We want to pass into that our line dot book, right? As well as an event dot target, which is targeting the value. So the value is going to change according to that. Okay, I'm just going to kind of pull that back in. Okay, so that is the input that we're going to get for each of the rows, and that's the first one. That's the first column, which is basically going to be the quantity column. How many, right? Inside the same table row, we're going to add in another TD, right? And inside of that, what we want is the handlebars again. The handlebars are basically going to inject. They're going to inject a line.book.name, right? So that's what's going to be injected in here. So followed by the book name. So the quantity by the book name. That's the second column. So you can see these are following the same header: quantity, and then book, and then price and subtotals. We need two more. So price, right, is going to be again a column with a class of text right. And inside that, we're going to have the handlebars again. And the handlebars are going to be line.book.price, okay? Or the pipe. We're going to pipe it through the currency again. We're going to create a currency pipe. We can also make our custom pipes in Angular. We're not going to do that here. Similar to what we had before when we said that the precision is going to be 2-2. All right, there we go. Okay, so that is the next column. We have one more column to go, and that column is going to be for the line totals. So again, TD with a class of text right, and inside of that, we're going to have some more handlebars. The handlebars are going to be line dash line total. I'm not sure why that's not coming up, but we'll see in a second. Maybe there's an issue somewhere where I missed that. Currency, and we're going to go with, again, USD. That line total should come up there, but we're going to see what it's called. Maybe it's called something else. Symbol, and then 2.2-2. All right, so that kind of gives us this line total. This is line total is not defined. So why is that? Where is it getting line price and line total? Where's that coming from? From the cart details component. So there is a couple of things that are coming in. So the cart line, right? We're getting a cart. And if I look at the cart component, it's coming from our cart model. So if I go to model, and if I go to cart, we can say we have lines, item count, cart price, right? And let's see if somehow we missed that. We may have missed it, but I'm guessing that we did. I'm just going to go back up to the model. I'm just going to check out my model for a second, because that is definitely going to cause us a problem. And you're just going to bear with me for 1 second, because I think we're missing that part. Because the cart itself has add line update quantity, we have remove, clear, review, calculate, and we have a cart line with book and quantity, but we're missing something, right? So we're missing a in our cart itself an item for the line total, and that's for each line and the cart line. Okay, because that's what's happening. We're looking for we are looping through for each line and cart lines, cart.lines, right? So that's what this line is. So cart.lines, just to let you know, if you go to cart and if you look at lines, it's of type cart line. Cart line has the following things. It has a book and a quantity, right? So each line and cart line says book and quantity, and we need to have a cart total, right? And we don't have that. Other models that we have in here are we have the book model. We talked about the book model having all this. We have the cart model, but that cart model seems to be missing something, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up my documentation again, just to make sure that we are not missing anything. And I'm just going to do that right here, just to make sure that we go through the cart itself, because that is going to be something that's going to debilitate us in the future as we go forward, which is not something that I'm interested in for it to happen. And I'm just going to search through it for a second. If I don't, then we're going to just bear with it as we move forward. But that is a key feature, because what we want to do is, when it comes to the cart model, right, the shopping cart model, we want to basically ensure that we have everything here. So I'm just taking a look at it now. So we have, it should have the following things. And the top should be lines, cart line, yes. Item count and cart price, yes. Add line and update quantity, yes. Remove line should be there as well, and clear, yes. Recalculate should be there as fine. And then cart line should have a constructor that has a product or a book and a quantity. And one thing we're missing, exactly what I thought, we're missing something. We're just going to put this constructor here. I'm just going to put this on this side just to modify the quantity here. We're going to put this in, which was missing from last time, but that's okay. A getter, which is line total. We didn't need it till now anyway, so it's okay. And the line total getter is going to be return this dot quantity multiplied by this dot book dot price. That's what we were missing here. Let's just make sure we take care of that linting, because that bugs me. There we go. So that's all good to go. I'm going to save the cart model, and going back to the cart detail HTML now, we don't have an error anymore in there. Right, that's pretty good. Okay, and that's what I wanted to take care of, because that was an issue. Continuing, so we have all that, but we want to add in another thing. So we've got, basically 1 column, 2 column, 3 column, 4 column. We want one more. We want another column, which is going to have a class of text center, and that is going to include a button with a class of button, button dash small, button, button dash danger, so red button basically. And this button is going to allow us to remove the items from the cart. So we're going to have a little thing here that's going to say on click. Then we want cart.remove line to happen, and we're going to remove the line.book.id on whatever the line that we're looking at. We're going to remove that item by book ID from the cart. One thing to note is we've been working on this stuff for a bit of time, so a couple weeks now, and we've been working on the front end but we really haven't touched the back end. This is okay. And what this does for us is it kind of solidifies this idea that we can do a lot on the front end. So before we do a round trip or access the back end, we can do quite a bit on the front end. Okay, cool. So that is the body. Let's add a footer. So table footer. Inside that, we're going to have a table row. And inside that, we're going to have a table column times 2. All right. The first table column, we're going to have, it's going to be a column span that's equal to 3. So 3 columns wide. And we're also going to include a class, which is equal to text right. Okay. Inside the column detail itself, it's going to be total. And then we're also going to have another column that is a class of text right. And that is going to say the following. That's going to be a couple lines here. So we're going to say again, we're going to use the handlebars cart price, which we're going to pipe into the currency pipe. We're going to use the standard currency pipe that's coming with Angular. And what we want to do is we want a symbol to be there, and the symbol again is going to just allow us to do our precision. All right, so that's kind of, we're going to have a USD, so $, and the price is going to be there, and that's going to take care of our footer for our table. And we're going to come out of the table, we're going to have 2 div tags, and we're going to still have the bottom div tag that we're going to add stuff to. So that's in here. So table, 2 div closing tags, which are going to close off this row. And now we're going to add a new row, a new div tag with a new row. So div with a class of row. And inside that, we're going to have a div with a class of column. And inside that, we're going to have a div with a class of text center. This is just organization. And inside that, we're going to have a button with a class of button, and then button dash primary, and then m-1, which is margin 1. We're going to do that. Okay, so now let's figure out how this is all going to play out. Again, I like to organize it so that it is kind of layered in the right order. This is important for us to, from an organizational perspective, it's good to try and organize this right. So the button itself is, we're good to go. We're going to have in here a continue shopping button, and we're going to use a router link that's going to basically point to the book list. Okay, so that's what it's going to go. Continue shopping, go back to the book list. And that's what this is going to show. Okay, so that's kind of where we're at with this. So here's the button, just the div. This div should be aligned underneath there. That div should be there, and we're good to go. Okay, so that's this part. Continue shopping. Underneath that button, or next to that button actually, we're going to have another button with a class of button, and then button dash secondary. So kind of a gray button with a margin of 1, and we're also going to have some text for that one called checkout. No, checkout. And what this is going to look like, I'm just going to put this here and that there, is we're going to have a router link in here. So we're going to say router link. We want to take this to the checkout, right? Again, this may change later on. And we also want to include it's going to be disabled, right? If cart.lines.length is equal to 0. So we're not going to allow it to be clicked or checked or whatever unless we the carts.lines.length, so the actual how many things are in the cart, if it's greater than 0, then only then will we allow you to click this button. Otherwise it'll be disabled. Okay, and that should be it. We should have after the button 4 div tags, which we do. Good to go. So this is kind of structure. It looks long, but I stepped you through it so you understand the thinking behind all this. Now let's see if it actually works. It's another thing altogether. Right. All right, so we're back to this. We'll refresh the page. Takes us back to the cart. We're going to add to cart. Now we have our cart details, and it's kind of ugly. It's pretty long. I probably would want to make this a lot shorter than this, so kind of compressed instead of it being like this. But that's totally fine. We see that we've added Dune, and we can continue shopping. And now you can see that that didn't work, continue shopping. Right, so continue shopping didn't really take us anywhere. And that's a problem. Let's take a look and see what happened. So inspect. What happened when we continue shopping? That line, right, for continue shopping should have taken us to back to the book list. That's what it should have done. But it did not. All right, so let's do that again. So we'll add Dune. Then we click continue shopping, and it should take us to that book list. Checkout also should take us to checkout. It doesn't move us right now, which is kind of a concern. If we click remove, it removes us from cart, but we can't get back to shopping anymore, which is a problem. Okay, so it doesn't work the way we want it to yet. Not yet. Okay, so we can add stuff, but we can't really move from there. Let's take a look and see what happened. All right, so back to this. So we're good. It looks like it compiled successfully, but our router links seem to not be functional. All right, so why would that be? So router link, remember that in the cart details that we need a router for that, for it to work. So make sure that, because in the cart details right now, we just have cart, right? But our router link is not working, right? Because we're trying to click on it, but the button doesn't seem to work. Let's make sure that it is correct in the HTML document here. So the button, I'm just going to check the button areas here. Button class is button primary M1. That looks right. Router link, and it's /book list with continue shopping. That should totally work if I click on that thing. And it's not. And that is disabled, but if we add something, it's working. So that is okay. We may have to reboot. I don't think so, like restart the server and stuff. But that should totally work. Like totally work. I'm not even getting a link. So what if I go to book list here manually? Yeah, see, so our book list is gone. But it won't even allow me to go to that area there at all. That link doesn't seem to be physically responding in any way, these links. This one works. That link worked. But this link, when we did this, we clicked on the button, that router link did not work. And we shouldn't need a special directive for that. Because here, we needed to click. Right, that's what we needed to do, right, to make that router link work. But here we didn't have that, and it's not really moving anywhere. So that is something that is missing from our shopping cart, right? So I'm just going to look ahead here, and I want to see that we can get to that. Yeah, there should not be any reason why we can't get to doing this at all, right? So let's take a look at that all together and think about why that's happening. So link. Is it the route guard? Well, let's try some other stuff. So whenever I run into this kind of problem, I always try and make other things work. So let's say, okay, cool. What happens if I add to quantity, right? So the click, we remove from quantity. You know what? I also want this router link to work too. So it's remove. It's going to remove the cart, but also let's make router link. Router link, right? We're going to make that router link go to slash. Let's see how that works. So we're going to go to the page. We can add this anywhere we want, the router link, right? So let's see that in action. So if I click this, yeah, see, so it didn't really take us back to where it's supposed to. It didn't actually work at all. And when we had our router link working, I believe what we ended up doing was we ended up passing in our router for that, right? Because we have access to the router in order for us to do that, change by URL kind of thing. But we shouldn't have to do that for router linking. Router link can also happen like this, square brackets. We do router link, right? And it says that can't bind to router link since it has unknown property, isn't a known property of button, right? So that's an issue because we should totally be able to router link from a button. What if it's an anchor tag instead of a button? Can that work? And it says it's an unknown property of thing. Let's peek at the problem. So router link. That should totally work. And let's do some documentation. So we're going to fix this problem. So we're going to go to Angular, and we're going to go to router link. Right, so we can see what that looks like. And a lot of times we want an example of that. So here it is, an anchor tag with a router link of, and whatever that looks like. That's how it would normally link, a link to user, and that's the actual way it would work. Notice how router link is in square brackets. It doesn't have to be, because that also says that there might be an array of things to do. But we could protect it that way. We could protect it that way if we wanted to. We can create state and all that kind of stuff here. Let's, I'm not sure that we would have to do it this way, but let's try it anyway. So means that this part here, let's just take this away. So let's not remove. I'm just testing it here to make sure that this works. Router link with and just like it shows here, a square brackets. So this would be in square brackets. And we'll put this part inside of there. It's a bit of a mess right now. We're going to clean that up. That should totally work, but it says that router link on the anchor tag, it says can't bind to anchor since it's unknown property of a, but here it's clearly showing that is the case. And I think we have to include this as a in the router module. I think we have to add that router module in there in order for us to do that properly. But it's weird that we never had to before, and it's stopping us from doing it now. Notice that input router is looking at that. Did I miss something? It doesn't seem so. I've got one more place to look, and then we'll have to stop it for the next video because that should totally work. So why is this not happening? And it says doesn't know what this thing is, but I'm pretty sure that if we were to go to our cart detail.ts file and include it, we have our public cart. But if I also ask for router, it wouldn't matter. Pretty sure that wouldn't matter, that if we did that. because even though we have it and we're using a router link and router is here, we know how to do it, I'm pretty sure it won't matter. But let's try it. Maybe it needs it, or maybe what we have to do is inside of our bookstore module include router, because we didn't do that as this stated, right? So we actually include this. But let's see what happens. So if we did this now and we refresh and we add to cart and then we continue shopping or checkout, remove works, but we don't really have the router. We're not even getting any errors, which is always a problem. Whenever I see this, I'm like, wow, man, it would be really cool if we had errors here just to help us, but we don't even have errors, which is a problem. So skip back up. So we have our store first guard. We did that part. Our router module, and I'm looking at the app module. App module does have our router module, right? App routing module. The app routing module has this thing, app router module, which has our router module. So that is where the router module is. Just stepping back here for where it's supposed to be. The store first guard is injectable. We did this, and store module. Yeah. Looks to me like we may have missed in the store module, bookstore module, that we should also include the router module in here as well, which we didn't do that. So let's do that. I'm going to say we're going to import the router module in there. So router module. Let's do it so that it does it for us. Router module by choosing this. And that's going to save that part. We're going to go back into our cart details and remove router, because I'm pretty sure we didn't need that. And maybe that will fix the issue. Let's see if that works. We're going to refresh. We're going to add to cart. We're going to click. Okay, yay, that worked. That's what it was. So we just didn't route the router module in there. So notice they retained the cart now, and we can add other items. So to blood music, continue shopping. We can add another one. You can see that there's, okay, now that's another problem. So we're adding items, but it's not capturing the cart. We're just adding to the same quantity, same one over and over again. And that's not working properly. Let's see if there's an issue here. So in the console, we're seeing again, no problems. This is a coding issue, not a coding error. Checkout obviously takes us to the checkout component, but doesn't do anything right now. But this should be adding things up correctly, and it does not. It does not. Because we should be able to get the exact thing we're ordering, not what we're doing here. So let's go back through it and see that it's doing the right thing. So that was the problem with that. But the cart detail component is where the tricky part is. Okay, so let's take a look here. So just sorting through it again. So your cart, my quantity, my product, my price, and my subtotal is good. But the way we get to the cart is by clicking on the item. Clicking on the item. And I believe that's going to be, we want to make sure that the item that we click on is the correct one. So that's going to be in our store component, bookstore component. And I want to make sure that we're good. So our bookstore says we have our selected category, our products, our books per page, our selected page is 1. We're going to pass in a reference to the router. And then what we're going to do is we're going to navigate by URL to the cart. And we're going to add the product, which is the book that we want, to the cart. That's what we're doing here, right? And then what we need to do is we need to modify the cart summary component.html, which is when we want to, our cart is empty, and we want to show bunch of things. Let me just make sure this is correct here, because I want to make sure that we're good. Because we're not really showing what I want to show. Cart summary, not cart detail, cart summary component.html. What are we missing here? So your cart should show ng if cart.itemCount is greater than 0, yes. If cart.itemCount items, cart.cart price, right? We have our US currency. This is good, and that's the end of that span. And then we have our empty cart. So that's this part here. Looking at it again. And then followed by a button that gives us a router link to the cart. The router link to the cart. So the button is disabled until we click it, and it's going to be a shopping cart. So that's just, this is just the cart itself. That's not much of anything. So that means that if I click on the cart, if I add something, click on the cart, if I go checkout, let's go back. So add something, go to continue shopping, and then click on the cart. That should take us back to the cart, which it's not. So that's another issue, right? Because there's a router link here too. Look. This router link is not going to function, and it's doing the same thing, disabled, until if the cart is equal to 0. But if it's not, then we're going to go to a router link, which means that in our cart summary component, which is this, we also have to include our router in here as well, which means that's not propagating. This is not propagating. We're getting a router module, but the router module in here is not working for the component. Add to cart button is going to be in the cart details component. Let me just go back to that again. And that's going to be when we add to cart detail component. Cart detail component is when we want to add to cart. So whenever I add to cart, I go to the cart detail, and let's take a look at that. One sec. Well, the cart detail right now is pretty much empty, but the that's the checkout. I mean, cart detail is here. Cart summary, cart detail. That'll be okay. So this is this cart detail stuff, and it's basically doing for every line in lines, but we want to add a line to the cart, and that's not happening here. This is just adding up the cart properly. Cart lines, for every cart line in cart lines, doing this. So, but where the actual book is concerned, in the book list, which is in the store component.html here, when we add to cart, we want to add to cart the book that we're clicking on. This one, add book to cart. Add book to cart, and that would be what we're looking at here. So as the book. Now if I go to if I go to definition for this thing, then what we're looking at is it goes to the book and it adds line of the book. Go to definition. Let's go there. Add line takes the book and the quantity. The quantity is defaulted to 1, right? And let's print out the book. Let's do a console log in here. So when we add a book, we're going to say a console log. Do some of the book itself dot name. We'll say the book name. We'll add that this is a debug, and we'll put a little thing for debug. So we'll say debug. Oh. Debug. or to do. We'll do a to do like this. So we'll light it up. So this debug to do, which is going to be our troubleshooting, right, is going to show our book name, right, when we put it in. This is injectable. All right, so let's see how that looks again when we do that. And I'm just going to open up the inspector, and so we can see what this does. And when I click on a book, for example, I want to click on iRobot, it should say iRobot, and it goes iRobot. Okay, continue shopping, and when I click on another one, Blood Music, but it adds into iRobot instead. So Blood Music got sent in, so you can see that that got sent in, but iRobot was added to. And if I increase the amount here, it calculates based on 1496, because if I have 6 times 1496, it doesn't look right. 6 times 1496 is 89.76. Yeah, so it's the same price, and it's just adding in iRobot, but not Blood Music. Continue shopping, and it's 89.76. If I add in Dune, then we're just adding in another one, right? So that's what's happening. So we see the book is coming through iRobot, Blood Music, and Dune, and that's what should show here. But instead, we're not seeing that. All right, so that's what's happening when we click on Add Book. Okay. So that is what's happening here. So book is coming through. We're saying we're making a line. We're trying to find if the book exists, the book by ID. If the book exists, and if line is not equal to undefined, then we want to increase the quantity. Otherwise, we want to push on to this. And I think something is wrong in here, in this line right here, because const line, this.cartlines.find book with an ID of book name, if it's equal to book ID, something's wrong. So I think we're using book too often, but hey, let's see what our book ID is. So let's print out our book ID. So plus, okay, and we'll say book.name, make this ID plus book name. I just want to see what this does, and this should be in single quotes, not double quotes, because that's what it wants. Go back, and if I go to add to cart, undefined. So okay, cool, undefined, then continue shopping, and then if I add to cart, undefined. So where does that go? So this is an issue. So book itself, if line, okay, so that is basically doing, it says we're trying to find book ID, but we're trying to compare book ID, and this will fail. So cart line itself will be undefined, right? Which is going to come to this, and it should push a new one to the cart, but it does not. So let's go here, let's get through this, console log not undefined, and we'll say here this is undefined, console log undefined. Let's see if we can actually get there in this example. So I'm doing this to troubleshoot. I'm showing you also a way of troubleshooting your own work when you don't have a PowerPoint to look at. What do you do? So again, I'm going to add to cart. It says undefined. Continue shopping and add to cart. Not undefined. That's a problem because it shows undefined here. Look, this should be undefined as well, right? So the first one did it right. It went here and added it on. But the second one, when it came through again, it didn't do that. So there's something missing from add line. And this is from the cart model that we added yesterday or last week. Let's go back and look at that, the cart model. So I just want to see that the cart model. because what we want to make sure is that the cart model is clean. All right, so let's go through it again. Lines, add line. What did I miss? We have our book. We have our quantity, which is equal to 1. Okay, we have void. We go to a const line, this dot lines dot find L, and then which is representing the line, the cart line dot book ID is exactly equal to book ID. If this is true, then if the line is not equal to undefined, line quantity plus equal to quantity. All right, cool. Else, this dot lines dot push dot cart line, we want to push the book and the quantity. So this is all good. What's in the recalculate? Because that's the other thing that's being accessed. And the recalculate. So, because recalculate goes there next, right? So we calculate, let's go there. And item count is equal to 0, cart price is equal to 0. This is good for lines. For each line in the cart, we want to plus equal to the line quantity. And we want to add the quantity multiplied by the book price. This all looks good. This all looks good. But somehow, even though it's not undefined, it still finds a line, which is weird. Item count, cart price, calculate item count, cart price for each line. Sorry, I'm just going through the code. Item count, line quantity, cart price plus equals to line quantity and line book price. That looks all good. Line total looks okay. Return this dot quantity, this dot product, or book dot price. And then the clear lines, if we're going to clear it up, item count, cart price. Remove line, lines dot find index, line by book ID, remove the ID that we're looking for, correct. Line splice, recalculate. Update quantity. Update quantity. So we get a book quantity, which is a book, a number, const line, this dot lines dot find, if line ID, the book ID is equal to the book ID, then the line, if line is not equal to undefined, then line quantity is equal to a number, and then call recalculate. We call recalculate a bunch of times, but so far what it looks like is there's not a problem here. At least not that I can tell. I don't see that there's a problem with any of this code, right? It's weird that we're getting here. We shouldn't be getting to not undefined. We should only get to not undefined if it was the same exact ID, right? Maybe because both IDs are undefined, we're getting it. It's the same thing because the ID is undefined. So why is the ID undefined? Why is the ID undefined? That comes from our model, right? So that comes from our model, our data.js. Data.js is having ID, not underscore ID. And that's why it's undefined. That's exactly why. So this should be underscore ID, not just ID, because that is our data model, if you think about it. So the code's not wrong, but the data model's wrong, because it should say ID, underscore ID, not ID, because our cart model, which is here, sorry, not our cart model, but our book model. If I go to the book model itself, book model has ID, but we never receive it. That should fix it, actually. So let's go back to this and get rid of all this stuff. because that should be the problem. That should be the fix for the problem. So we don't need any of these console logs anymore. So save it, and let's take a look at this now. The thing is, we need to restart, if I'm not wrong, our data. So I'm going to go back to the other thing here, and we're going to stop this and restart it just so that it serves up the correct data again. Restart. Once we change anything in the data model, we have to restart this stuff, and we should be able to see the proper ID now. So refresh. I want to add this to cart. Dune, continue shopping, add something to cart. Now it's working as it should. And the reason why it didn't work is because we weren't sending even over an ID. It was always undefined. And of course, it's going to find something that's undefined because it's finding something that we're adding, which is undefined. We're actually searching for something. We're finding what we're searching for, undefined. And that's not what we want. All right, so that is most of the problem. This is definitely a problem because I'm not able to click there and go anywhere to the cart. It's enabled, but we can go to contact, but if I go back to cart, it's not defined. If I add to cart, it is defined. I should be able to go here. If I continue shopping and go back, it should take me back to cart, right? So if I put in from here, if I go in, type in the word cart, now that I'm here, it should take me back to cart, not to here if I'm searching. And of course it doesn't do that. That's an issue. And I believe that problem, if I was going to troubleshoot that problem, is inside of the header itself, right? Because the header itself, if I go back to the header module, by the way, just as an aside, as we're going through this, I think by now, if you're watching this video and you're here, you could realize the challenges involved in managing an application of this size, right? And understanding where to look for some of the issues. And it just comes down with working with the application structure and experience, right? So, so let's go back into our partials and take a look at our header and go into our header.html. So the header component is here, and this is where our cart summary is popping up, right? But our header component.ts here, remember that what we're trying to do is click on it, and it's supposed to redirect us, right? And it's being injected. So far, we don't have anything like that that gets injected. So the way to check that, let's check it, and we're going to go into the cart model, app-cart model. This is inside the bookstore. So the cart summary. And if you look at the TS, it's app cart summary. And if I go to the HTML, we see this little thing here, and we have this little router link. And this little router link won't work. All right. So it's a button, right? And it says disabled if the cart 0, but here's the router link. Remember the router link we had a problem with last time? The reason why it can't go to cart is because routing isn't enabled on this module, on the header module. So in partials, right, we haven't included the routing module in here at all, right? So if I go to imports and I go to routing module, right? So not the app routing module, just like we did with the other components that we have inside here, the bookstore component, right? Where we have the router module, right? Router module is also going to come into our header, or our partials, if you will, right? So which is, here's a partials module, and the partials module is being included in the page module, right? So if you look at the pages module, here's the pages module, then routing the partials module is here, right? So, but in the partials module, we need a router module to be involved there as well. So let's go into the partials module, and we'll include router module, which is this one. And hopefully that'll solve our issues. It may not. We'll know. Maybe it'll cause other issues. But let's see what happens. So click this. We added it in. We add another one. We have 2 of them. We continue shopping. And if I click here now, Still don't go anywhere. And just to notice, just as again as an aside, we've got no error. Got no error. So even though we click here, router link on the nav bar doesn't seem to work, right? Because this is a nav item now. It's not a router link, and we're including it in the nav bar. We may have to do something else, and that's something outside of the PowerPoint, right? So router module here, it was a nice idea. We don't have anything to save, but it didn't do what we wanted it to do in the partials module, right? Which was in the partials module, that didn't really work. In the cart summary component, we want that to work, and the cart summary component is included in the bookstore module. So bookstore module has the cart summary component, right? So cart detail, cart checkout component, but take a look at that, right? The cart summary component isn't included in here, right? Cart summary not happening, right? So that is definitely something that we should think about, because it's not even included in our components here at all. So where is the cart summary component included? Well, we know that the cart summary component, even though it's listed here, is only included in the is it the pages module? Partials module. And how about in the partials module itself? So pages, and we're going to look at partials module, and we see the cart summary component. This is the place where it's entered, and this is where we had a problem last time. So so router module, even though we included it here, and cart summary component is here, I wonder if we should export it now. Let's do that export. Cart summary component export. Let's see if this is the problem. I don't think so. It's something like that though, where this is supposed to go to cart when we need to. And see how it's hovering there like that? That means it's not clicked. Even if I go back and click it, it's not going to go there. So we may have to enable that some other way. I'm going to do that in the next video or later on. I'm not going to hop around this too long. We've been kind of focusing on errors, which is good, but we want to move on to more functionality. And we'll come back and notice that is a problem. All right, so we'll leave it as is right now. We'll just remove that exports again, because that's not going to fix the problem. And also, we're going to remove the router module. Well, actually, it's not going to hurt us to leave it in, but this isn't the solution. This is not the solution. Router module here is not enabling us to do the cart summary component properly and to actually enable router link. Without router, the router module, router link doesn't seem to be functional. The other thing to try and do is inside of the cart summary component itself include the router module, but again, I'd have to look up how to do that. Okay, so we're going to get back to that. So that's it for this video. We're going to fix that problem in the next video. So just as a recap, what did we do? We got partial working of this. Mostly it's working. So again, if we go through the list, if I go to my books, I add it to cart. I can add multiple books to the cart. Again, we have a minor glitch when we go to look at the cart by clicking on it. It won't go there, but the rest of it works nicely. When we can add as many of those items to the cart as we want. We can also increase the same item in there, and it'll update everything. We can remove an item. It'll update the cart accordingly. And we can go to checkout, which is right now a template or a placeholder. Okay, that's it. In the next video, what we're going to be doing is we're going to finally process orders. That's the next one, which is going to be going to the checkout component. I'll see you in the next video.